And the good news with that is that she doesn't need to take any pressure, just needs to give her best. Every half a point that you can save against Magnus will be huge. It's liftoff where Vaishali chooses to start with the King's Pawn opening, and Magnus making his intentions very clear, going for the Sicilian here.
Yes, we are getting a Rossalimo, just like we saw in the 2018 World Championship between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. And Bishop e5. He hasn't moved yet, and I believe it's because he feels he has to play for a win. And what is this on an e5? I know I have not seen this. At least not very often.
This is just Magnus mixing it up. He just wants a game. He is pretty clear that Vaishali has some preparation if she's gone for the Rossalimo, and Magnus wanting to make sure she gets none of that. He says, you know what, we'll fight on in non-theoretical ground, non-theoretical battle, and that's what he's going for. Continues to blitz that with the bishop to d6, a strange square at first, because you're like, wait a second, you've got these two pawns, and I see one pawn is already lost. Did Vaishali just make a blunder? Was that a mouse slip? Was she intending to play d3? What just happened? Why is she not making her next move quickly? So many questions, and I'm struggling for the answer.
Okay, I think she still is maybe in preparation, but I think she's moving slowly. I'm very confused by this. If we just bring up an analysis board and go back a couple moves here. The move e5 by Magnus. The whole point of this move is to take away the d4 square. You have two pawns staring there. White doesn't have a pawn on c3. So after bishop d6, you play d4 anyway. It's a pawn sacrifice. And h6 played by Magnus to take away this knight jump. Tanya, unless white gets some huge pressure against the f7 pawn, is this enough compensation? You gave him a pawn in the center, and Vaishali is the one thinking.
That is the most surprising part. You gambit a pawn, you sacrifice a pawn, it's for the initiative. This is not a classical game. You have got to keep the momentum up on the clock, find your compensation. One of the ideas that comes to mind, now time is of the essence here, Robert. You can't make slow moves once you've sacrificed a pawn already. You can try and trade off that knight on d4 and already try to put pressure along the center. Break open with the pawn move c3. Take advantage of Magnus's development of the bishop on d6 with the queen x-raying down the d file, and it's on the board. And to me, that seems like part of Vaishali's preparation. d4 was not a mouse slip.
No, it wasn't, but black can solve two problems at once with bishop c5, making sure the bishop is no longer hanging here, and protecting this pawn. So we can see where the compensation comes from. The white's king safely castled. The black piece is not developed. This bishop is awkwardly blocking this bishop on c8. The king side, of course, is not developed at all. But if bishop c5 happens, I feel like it's a moment, Tanya, where white has to prove all that compensation. It is a full pawn. If you take on d4, the bishop can take back. Black's pawn structure is not compromised. So black will be up a pawn, but white will have squares to jump into. Namely, if this knight gets into c3 and d5, maybe at some point a pawn push to f4. But Tanya, Magnus Carlsen seems right at home, quite literally, because he is in his home, but also in this position. I don't think he's too worried. And maybe she completely overlooked knight h2. It's just not something you see all the time. Magnus win this rook on f1. It is stuck in its place.
I think he's gonna do it. He does it. He does it. Knight h2 on the board, and this could have been a big miss by Vaishali, but whatever it was, this spells absolute disaster in this game for the white pieces. And very often, it's not just the result, but also the way the game develops. And I think Vaishali will not be happy with the way she's handled this one. The rook on f1 will fall, and we were struggling to find compensation for that one pawn that black had. Now I think finding compensation for that extra exchange will be impossible in this position.
Especially against Magnus Carlsen. He's not somebody who lets people back in the game very easily. And I think she's considering, do I take on d4? Is there some kind of queen d6 type of intermezzo hitting this, trying to threaten the checkmate? The answer is there isn't. Queen d6 will be met by bishop c5. That's why instead Magnus says, give me that material and let's trade. We're up in exchange, so let's trade pieces. That's what you're taught to do. Liquidate when you're ahead. Magnus Carlsen, he knows what to do better than anybody in the planet. He'll bring a rook to the open c file as well. First block this bishop, then bring a rook to the c file. Maybe actually defend your pawn, and then bring a rook to the c file. But when all is said and done, black has an extra rook compared to this knight on f1. Huge advantage for Magnus.
White is dreaming of getting that knight from f1 to f5, but it is a far way off and really tough to imagine it getting there on time. Vaishali trying to push her pawns, trying to get that knight all the way to f5 to create some play, but it just looks like black is in time, and I love that move. He's going for your idea, your philosophy. You're up material, you trade off as many pieces as possible. If the queens are off the board, Magnus Carlsen wins hands down, but I don't see a good square. You can't come on the c file. The rook will slide down to the c file, winning another tempo. That doesn't help. This looks like Magnus's game.
Yeah, even with like queen d1, bishop c3 hits the rook, hits these pawns that are in a row here. It seems like at some point soon, maybe bishop h4, by the way, hitting this knight to this rook. It feels like Magnus will continue to trade off pieces. I think we can confidently say that he is in charge in this one. And so maybe as